Hi folks, this is David Fine from Watch Your Lib. Welcome to the Beach Fishing Fast Fish series where we're going to help you catch snook on the beach. That's right, go to the beach where everybody swims and catch yourself some dinner. It's a beautiful, beautiful fish, awesome white meat. Check this video out and we're going to give you some helpful pointers on how to catch snook from the shore. Check it out. Centropomus undecimalis, the snook, the common snook. It is a fish that is unmistakable with other fish species. Actually, there are at least four snook species that live in South Florida. We have the common snook, we have the fat snook, the sword spine snook, and the tarpon snook. All of those other species are typically a lot smaller and aren't the ones that you find out on the beaches. A lot of times those are more in the backcountry. You can find them in the Everglades and in the backcountry canals and stuff like that, in the intracoastal. Out on the beaches, we're dealing with the common snook. Centropomus undecimalis, the other white meat. Phenomenal fish, guys. They've got that black lateral line. Guys, that big black line down the side of a snook, that is actually an organ. All fish have the lateral line, but the snook have it pronounced with that black scaling on top of that lateral line. That organ, guys, is the organ that helps fish sense vibrations and other types of, they actually communicate with each other with that lateral line. If you see baitfish and they're all kind of moving in one direction and all of a sudden the entire school changes directions all at the same time, it's because that lateral line helps them feel water movement and vibrations, and they actually know what's going on with that system, that organ. So a snook has a very pronounced, very sensitive lateral line, and they use it to hunt. They use it to hunt prey, guys, and they are voracious predators, and they're all over our beaches from late spring all the way through the mullet run in the fall. And so that whole period of time, you can go out and find snook on the beach. Now, some interesting facts about snook, guys. They are actually hermaphrodites. That's right. Actually, many fish species are, but all snooks start off as males. And then once they get to about 28 to 29 inches, they actually change from male into female. And those really large fish, those oversized fish, the 34, 35, 40-inch fish, those are all egg-bearing females. So over the last few decades, the regulations on snook, on harvesting snook, have gotten a little bit tighter to protect those larger egg-bearing females. And so, guys, how do I harvest a snook legally? First of all, go to MyFWC and you can get your saltwater fishing license or your shoreline fishing permit, along with a snook stamp or a snook permit. In order to harvest a snook, you got to have a snook stamp. So the whole thing will cost you about, I think, 20, 25 bucks, something like that, with the saltwater license and the snook stamp, and then you're good for the year. But then once you get that, you got to know your seasons, because there are certain times of the year when you can keep a snook, and there's other times of the year when you have to let them go, because it's time to reproduce, it's time to lay eggs. That spawning season, they like to protect those spawning adults. And so, guys, snook season is closed. You cannot harvest from June 1st all the way through August 31st. So pretty much, kids, I'm very sorry, your entire summer, you can't keep a snook legally, all right? So don't do it. You got to release all snook that you catch during that season. But September 1st, all the way through December 15th, you can keep a snook. You can harvest the snook as long as you have the appropriate licenses. And so from December 15th until February 28th, it's closed again. So remember that there's two different snook seasons and two off seasons for snook. So from December 15th, it closes up until February 28th, and then March 1st, all the way through the end of May, it's open again and you can harvest your snook. So there's a slot too. So they have to be between 28 and 32 inches. So if you have a fish that's 27 and 3/4 of an inch, you got to let it go. I know it hurts. It hurts because you want to take that fish home and eat it. But it's got to be 28 inches from the bottom lip, the tip of the bottom lip, to the very end of the tip of the tail. It's got to be 28 inches. And then it's got to be no larger than 32 inches. So if it's 32 inches and a quarter, you got to let it go, because then it becomes that egg-bearing female, and we want to protect the females, so you got to let those fish go and reproduce. So between 28 and 32 inches, got to make sure it's snook season, got to make sure you have your licenses. That sounds exhausting, and honestly, it is a little bit, but we've got a very, very healthy snook population in South Florida, and it's because of the regulations that have been put in place. So even if it sounds annoying and seems annoying that I got to pay attention to the dates and the sizes and all that, it's worth it, because the snook are worth having around, and we have a very healthy population here in South Florida. One final thing, guys, if you're going to harvest a snook, it's only one per angler. So if you have a snook stamp, you keep one fish per day. That's it. So anything else you keep, or anything else you catch, you got to put back, right? So now, we're past all the laws. We're past all the rules. Let's get to the fun stuff. Let's talk about how to catch snook, okay? Snook are very highly predatory, and they're ambush predators. So out on the beaches, they come out on the beaches in the late spring all the way through the early fall for spawning. So if you want to go catch a snook, even though most of that season is closed during the summer months, that's the best time to get them on the beach. You can get them in the springtime before the season closes, or September 1st, man, it's on. Now, a lot of people want to throw their bait way out, right? They cast it as far as they can out. But here's the thing, snook travel really, really close to the shoreline, guys. I'm talking waist deep or less. I'm talking knee deep water. And the snook will travel right in the trough. When you enter into the water, especially at high tide, you know, there's that little trough in between the shoreline and the sandbar. Snook hang out in there, and they'll literally just travel in little pods of 2 or 3 or 4 up the shoreline. And usually there'll be like a big female and 2 or 3 smaller males with the female. And they'll travel up the shoreline, and they'll just be ambushing little croakers or pilchards or whatever else. Guys, they eat a variety of things. They love croakers. They love pilchards. They love goggle eye. They love sand perch. They love mullet. They love shrimp. They'll eat just about anything. My son caught one on a frozen sardine once. Go figure. That's not typically what you would go snook fishing with, but he caught a nice big snook on a frozen sardine, so go figure that. So in the summertime, your bait of choice is almost definitely going to be a pilchard. All right, so you take your pilchard and you hook it behind the pectoral fins in that little spot that's really soft right behind the pectoral fins. And I would use a piece of like 4-foot piece of 40-pound fluorocarbon leader, a small, fairly small circle hook, maybe a 2-0, maybe a 3-0 circle hook, depending on the size of your bait. And you can use a bobber if it's nice and calm. If the wind is kind of calm or you have a west wind, use a bobber and just let your pilchard just swim around in the trough like 10 feet from shore. If you let it sit there, all of a sudden you're going to get crashed in the middle. I mean, it's super exciting. That's your bait of choice. You can catch them on silver sides during the silver side run. Fantastic bait. And of course, when the mullet starts showing up in the fall, switch to a finger mullet or, you know, like an 8-inch, 9-inch mullet about that big, and hook them through the nose and just let them sit out there and you'll hook up. Some tactics that people will use, live bait fishermen will take a rod and a bucket with a cast net, and they'll cast net a few baits, have a dozen baits, and they're literally, with their polarized sunglasses, just walk down the beach until they see a little pod of snook swimming up the trough, and then they won't even put a bait in the water until they actually see the fish. That's a super exciting type of fishing when you're sight casting for a fish, and you can actually do that with snook on the beach. So you walk down the beach, and you know, you can might walk a half a mile or a mile, but those spawning fish are going to show up. And especially in the late afternoons, probably between 5 p.m. and sundown, you walk up and down the beach during that late afternoon period, you're going to see the snook. You'll see those yellow fins and that black line kind of cruising down the beach. You get your pilchard, you hook it up, and you toss it a few feet in front of the fish, and you're going to hook up. Other guys will just simplify even further. They won't even use live bait. They'll use artificial. They'll use little soft plastic baits that mimic a baitfish. Some people use a spool tech, crocodile spoons, zero spooks, Yuzuri, bomber lures, whatever. There's a number of lures that a snook will eat, and it's all about presentation. Snook love jigs. A lot of the guys on the jetties and inlets, they'll throw jigs in the middle of the inlets, and they'll catch snook with the jigs. On the beaches, I prefer a mullet mimic or a pilchard mimic. So that's a great strategy as well to catch snook on the beach in the summer. Snook have this terrible reputation of wrapping people in rocks or around pylons or something like that when you're fishing in jetties or at the pier or near docks and inside the intracoastal. But guys, guess what? Out on the beach, there's nothing for them to wrap you on. It's just sand. It's beautiful. So you don't need a heavy rod when you're fishing snook. You're not throwing out 100 yards out. You're casting literally 10 feet from the shore. So you can use lighter tackle. You can use a 15-pound outfit, a 20-pound spinning rod, 20-pound braid is what I use for almost all my snook fishing. And I'll use a piece of 40-pound fluorocarbon leader, small hook, small circle hook. And if I'm sight casting, I won't put any weight at all. Or you could use a slider rig where you have your leader to a swivel, maybe a 4-foot leader to a swivel, and then your weight, a small egg sinker on the other side, just to keep your weight, your line weighted down, and have your bait kind of just swim in there weighted to the bottom. You don't need a whole lot more than that, guys. Keep your drag set fairly light. You can have fun with these fish, and you don't have to horse the fish, which is what usually puts that extra pressure on the line that causes breakage. Keep your drag fairly loose. You use a circle hook, fight your fish, get them in. Snook don't have any teeth, so they can't bite your line, but you got to be careful with the gill plate. Right around the outside of the edge of the fish's mouth, near the cheek area, there's a very razor sharp edge gill plate. And sometimes the line can get wrapped around their side of their face, and that can get cut off on the gill plate. And you actually have to be careful when handling a fish. I actually have a stitch. I got stitches from a snook once, got caught on the gill plate. I got 4 stitches. That's one of my battle scars, guys. But be careful when handling snook not to get your hands anywhere near that gill plate action, or you might get cut. So guys, snook, amazing recipes, beautiful, beautiful white meat. If you're gonna harvest your fish, it helps to bleed the fish while it's still alive so that you get rid of any of the blood. But it's a beautiful, beautiful white meat, great tasting fish, great harvest fish. Make sure you're following the laws, and let's respect our fish. If the fish isn't in season or it's over or under, make sure you release it as quickly as possible to cause as little harm to the fish as possible. But guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Get out there and get some Centropomus, man. And we have the Centropomus Club going on. Who wants to join the Centropomus Club? Go out there and catch a snook. Let me know when you do. Comment down below if you have anything that you'd like to hear more about, because we got plenty more videos where this came from. Give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Guys, we're going to get out there. We're going to catch some fish. If you see me on the beach, please stop by and say hi. Till then, watch your lip. Take care. God bless.
Beautiful fish. Lorenzo's getting some GoPro footage. Beautiful slot snook. Eric got his kiss for the night.